And we are back. Welcome back to the Premier League prediction series. The international break is finally over and it is time to dive back in to club football with both the return of the Premier League and the start of European football this week coming. Make sure you are liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you're new around here, because we are going to have non-stop predictions over the course of probably the next 3.5 months as we cover all of the European games, all of the League Cup games, all of the Premier League games through to the next international break in 4 weeks' time, and so on and so on and so on. Basically now all the way up and through until the winter break in mid-December. There is going to be predictions basically near enough every single day. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on any of that. As for the prediction series itself, off the back of game week 3 of the Premier League, you will see that we are now on 13 correct Premier League predictions out of 30, and we actually got 4 correct scores because we managed to get 3 correct scores in game week 3. And in terms of the season results so far, we're on 84 out of 145 after the international break with 10 correct scores. So not too bad. The international break wasn't great for me. The Nations League did not go as well as I would have hoped, but we're still well above 50%, which is what I was really sort of hoping to be ahead of. I can't really drop below 50% if I want to consider myself any good at this. But this is where we stand right now. Before we get into today's Premier League predictions, a reminder that you can still join my Super 6 Mini League with the code available on your screen right now to see if your prediction skills are any better than mine. And without any further ado, let's actually get started with Premier League Game Week 4, starting as always with the early kickoff on Saturday, which is Southampton taking on Manchester United. Both of these sides with rather poor starts, it has to be said. Southampton, of course, only scoring 1 goal so far in the Premier League, and that being a late consolation in the 95th minute on their last outing. Manchester United sitting on just 3 points after their opening day victory to Fulham, albeit that being a little bit lucky, and then losing to Brighton and then Liverpool. Personally, I think this is a game Manchester United simply have no excuses for not winning. Yes, Southampton will feel like they can get something, especially at home, but the likelihood being that Ugarte is going to come straight into the Manchester United starting lineup here. I think that'll give the legs in midfield that Manchester United are missing, and I think maybe Xerxes stays a little bit further forward and starts to be in those killer instinct positions more regularly, as he was for Holland in the international break, getting himself a goal. So I'm going to go for 2-0 to Manchester United. I really don't think Southampton should be troubling the Manchester United defence, but we'll see. It's not been the best so far. Hopefully, as a Manchester United fan, we see something better in this match. From there, we move on to a whole host of 3 o'clock kickoffs. We had 5 3 o'clock kickoffs in the Premier League this weekend. The first of those is high-flying Brighton taking on, still, as I say, newly promoted Ipswich Town, who haven't made the best start themselves. None of the promoted sides have made particularly good starts, but Brighton have made an absolutely storming start. 2 wins in their opening 2 matches, and then a draw away at the Emirates, albeit under controversial circumstances. But I look at this game here, and realistically there is only going to be one result based on what we've seen so far at the start of this season, and that is a Brighton win. The only question is, by how many is it going to be? And I am going for a 3-0 win to Brighton. I don't really see Ipswich scoring. I think Brighton are a very good side, being very creative, and I think they're going to get a good result in this one. The next one I think is going to be a little bit closer. It is Crystal Palace taking on Leicester. Obviously, Palace had that really poor start to the season, but bounced back with that 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge. Leicester, again, got their early draw at home to Tottenham, but from there haven't really got themselves anywhere else from that position. I think away to Palace, I think is probably a little bit too far for Leicester. I think they're going to really have to prioritise the home games this season, and I think Palace will definitely be looking to build on the momentum that they got with that draw away at Chelsea. I'm going to go for 2-1 though. I'm not going to go crazy and stay Crystal Palace blow them away, and I still think Leicester are more than capable of scoring, but I think in the end Crystal Palace are going to have enough to get the result. Next up, Fulham and West Ham, and this is a really hard one to place because I think both sides have actually made pretty positive starts to the season. I think they've both had tough games that they've performed well in, but just haven't necessarily got the points to back up the performances that they've got so far. Fulham's home record is fantastic. It's always been since they got re-promoted, it's been the thing that they've been best at, is getting and grinding out results at home, and defensively they are very good at home. However, last time out, I did back them to get the clean sheet and they weren't able to pull it off. So I'm bearing that in mind when it comes to this prediction. West Ham have been scoring goals this season so far. And with all of that said, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I was very tempted to go 1-0 Fulham again, but I do think West Ham are going to get a result in this one. I think this is probably one of, if not the toughest game to predict this weekend. And I really see all three possibilities very, very likely in this one. But I'm going down the middle. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. Next up, it is Liverpool taking on Nottingham Forest. Arguably the side that has made the best start in the Premier League so far this season. Liverpool, no goals conceded, loads of goals scored. Their attack is absolutely flying. Salah, Jota and Diaz absolutely free scoring amongst the three of them. The midfield has come in and looks absolutely settled as well. And then they've not conceded a goal either. Coming up against the Nottingham Forest side that historically don't create and score as many goals as they should. In terms of their bid to stay in the Premier League, they've still not really mastered scoring goals on a regular basis. I can only see this being another victory to nil in favour of Liverpool. Again, it's just a question of by how many. I am going to go for a 3-0 victory for them again, as it was at Old Trafford, because even though I think it could be more, I think what we saw again is once they get ahead, they are starting to see out these matches. They would rather preserve that clean sheet than go for a 4 or 5-1. They seem more settled going for a 2 or 3-0. Finally, in terms of 3 o'clock kickoffs, it is Manchester City taking on Brentford. And Brentford are a little bit of a bogey team for Manchester City. Let's not forget. Yes, City did win both the fixtures last season, but the season before that, it was Brentford that won both fixtures. And City have never beaten Brentford by more than 2 goals. And I think that was only on one occasion as well. So I think this is going to be a tight one. Obviously, the question is going to be, is Erling Haaland going to score another hat-trick, making it 3 hat-tricks in a row? Personally, I think he absolutely could, which is why I'm going for 3-1 to Manchester City. But I don't think it's going to be an absolute obliteration. Brentford have made a very good start to the season, despite all of the concerns regarding their squad. And obviously now that we know that Ivan Toney's moved on, etc., etc., they've still been performing well and they've still been producing results. And they'll still have opportunities to hurt that Man City defence. Manchester City defensively are still not perfect. They do rely on winning their matches through the goals that they score. So I can definitely see Brentford getting at least 1 goal in this game. But I think with City's quality, no one's going to be too surprised that I predicted Manchester City to win this one pretty comfortably at home. That then brings us on to the first of 2 evening games on Saturday for the first time this season. We have the 17:30, the 5:30 game between Villa and Everton before the very late kickoff, 8 o'clock between Bournemouth and Chelsea. Villa against Everton, again, I think Villa will be a little bit disappointed in terms of how some of their individual players have performed so far. Obviously, the results have still been there. Everton absolutely stinking in the Premier League this season. They had Bournemouth beat with just 2 minutes left and still lost 3-2. Their defence is an absolute shambles. I think with the creativity and the ability that Aston Villa have, they're going to see this as a real opportunity to rip through that Everton defence and score plenty of goals. And that is what I am going for. I am going for a 4-0 win to Aston Villa. I really do think this is going to be the game where it all sort of comes together for them. And look, they've got Champions League in midweek, so you may see changes to that Premier League starting lineup. But I think, again, the quality they've got, they should be beating Everton easily the way that Everton have started this season. That then brings us to that later kickoff between Bournemouth and Chelsea. Bournemouth, of course, the side that did turn over that 2-0 deficit to Everton to win 3-2 in the last minute of that game. Chelsea, off the back of their 6-2 win against Wolves, then drawing 1-1 at home to Crystal Palace. And it's what I've said every game with Chelsea so far this season. You just really don't know what's going to happen. It's very much a case of roll the dice and go for the numbers that come up. But, I mean, you could say that about the starting lineup as well. Is Jadon Sancho going to come straight into the team? Who knows, with all of the squad they have available to them. For me, really, really tough one to call. But I would still expect Chelsea to be the favourites for this match. I know Bournemouth play good football. I know they've started well this season. Antoine Semenyo's made a fantastic start individually, as well as the likes of Sinisterra off the bench, etc., etc. But I'm going to go 3-2 to Chelsea. I think it's a tough one to call, but I think Chelsea are going to end up edging it, and that's just the way I see it. Again, could see all three results possible, but I think Chelsea will just come out on top. That then brings us to Sunday, and the main event game, for me anyway, is not the late kickoff on Sunday. It is the early kickoff, and it is the North London derby between Tottenham and Arsenal, where the only real talking points going into it are what's going on with Arsenal's midfield. Declan Rice suspended, Martin Odegaard injured, so who is going to come in? Personally, I believe that it is going to be Jorginho and Trossard. I think Jorginho will come into the midfield for Declan Rice. I think that Trossard will go in up front for Martin Odegaard, with Havertz then dropping into midfield. Does that weaken Arsenal? Of course it does. Is it a significant weakness to Arsenal? I don't think so. I think they'll still be very, very strong no matter what they do. Maybe they bring Zinchenko in midfield as well. But I think Arsenal, they've won the last 2 years. It was very close in the end. Yes, they went 3-0 up. It was pulled back to 3-2. They've done well at Tottenham recently. But Tottenham's record at home to Arsenal is very, very good. Tottenham, in terms of performance, I think have made a good start to the season. But in terms of results, haven't made a good start to the season. Obviously drawing with Leicester, losing to Newcastle in games where, quite frankly, they should have won. There's no getting away from it. You look at the balance of those games, Tottenham should have won those games, and they haven't. Now they go into a game against Arsenal where they'll feel like they'll be able to exploit Arsenal's situation, and I genuinely think that Tottenham should win this game, which is why I've gone for 2-1 to Spurs. That's not me categorically saying I think Tottenham will beat Arsenal. I still think Arsenal should be considered the favourites in terms of all the other factors, but I think going into this game, Tottenham should beat Arsenal. And that's just the way I see it, which is why I've gone for 2-1. But we'll see. That's the joy of Premier League predictions. I'm going 2-1 Arsenal. We will see what happens. And then finally, in the actual main event slot, it is Wolves taking on Newcastle at Molineux. And basically what I was just saying about the Spurs game. Spurs were better than Newcastle at St James's Park. They were way better. But they missed all their chances and Newcastle took theirs. Wolves were very poor against Chelsea. Bounced back with a good performance last time out. Do I see all possibilities available in this one again? Absolutely, I do. I think there are going to be a lot of goals in this. I think Newcastle's defence is still very unsettled. I think Wolves' defence is still very unsettled. I think Newcastle are capable of scoring goals. I think Wolves are capable of scoring goals. So I'm going for a 2-2 draw. Again, I think Newcastle should be definitely considered the favourites for this. But Wolves under Gary O'Neill, especially at home, are a very strong side that are more than capable of getting a result against the Newcastle side that, again, in my opinion, has underperformed so far at the start of this season despite getting good results. But that is going to do it for today's video. As always, let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the community page where, once again, you can have your say on what you think is going to happen in all 10 Premier League fixtures. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'll be back on Sunday morning. I believe I'm going to do this. It'll either be Sunday morning or Monday morning for my first round of Champions League or League Cup predictions. So hopefully I'll see you there.